Today we're going to be talking about Atlassian governance practices. My name's Bonnie Byer, and I'm a delivery manager and a consultant at Valiantis. I've been in the engineering field for 30 years.
It was hard to say, huh? No, that just means you're statured and you're wise. Yeah, that's a good
So,
thing.
and I became a consultant in 2019 after leading my company through their agile transformation and their Atlassian tools modernization. And so now I enjoyed it so much, I do it for other companies. So that's what I'm doing. That's who I am. Jason, tell us about yourself.
Yep. So I run the practice for enterprise strategy and planning here at Valiantis. That's globally, so the United States and or all of North America and EMEA. And I was just thinking of what's my number, and I think it's 22 years. So I'm nipping at your heels there, but yeah, I've been involved in project and portfolio management at large enterprises for some time now in the software side of the house and in IT consulting side of the house. And then before that, I always joke about how I had a real job back when I was working in the industry, actually doing the project management, portfolio management. And so just happy to be with you all here today. Um, I'll go ahead and just introduce the company. If you're not familiar with Valiantis, we we are the #1 Atlassian Platinum Solution partner globally, which you can see there across the top. And what that means is we do, the largest amount of business and with Atlassian, and we're solely focused on Atlassian. That's something we're pretty proud of. And you can see all the merit badges there across the bottom. But essentially, what I want you guys to hear today is that we have a few core strengths, and one of them is Atlassian platform implementation. Like I said, we're totally focused on Atlassian. We don't do other, core systems. We may integrate to them, but we're focused on Atlassian. We also do training and enablement, a heavy amount of it, again, all around the Atlassian ecosystem. And we have a full stack app dev, custom solutions and development business. So that really, in a big way, accelerates our ability to bring value to clients, such as yourselves as well, because some of these things aren't as simple as just slapping a tool in place and then saying, good luck. It takes people, process, technology, training, some development, maybe some custom configuration from time to time. And just the way I feel is we got it all. And then if you take all that and you put it in a bag and you slap a really good vibe on it, that's Valiantis. So anyway, happy to be with you here all today.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Valiantis really is that one of our core values is make every interaction remarkable. And that's the whole purpose behind these webinars is once we get into it, which I will right away, is we want to make sure that every interaction we have with our clients and with the public is providing something of value. We want to make sure that you're walking away with something that you can actually use in your systems, in your organizations. So today we're going to talk about something that is very important to me. It's one of my passions, is governance over your Atlassian tools. Governance is a big word. Well, maybe not that big, but it's a scary word. People think of, oh, the government's here to help. And nobody wants that. People don't want restrictions and all that. But what we're going to talk about is what is governance? Well, why do we care about it? Who's involved? And how do we start? And then I'll give you a demo of some of the tools that I use to support my clients when they're working through some of their governance challenges. So let's go ahead and jump in with what is governance? Well, Wikipedia defines it as the process of making and enforcing decisions within an organization or a society. We see it all the time in organizations where they have software development practices or they have configuration management policies and procedures. There's scope control on large customer programs. The change control board might be a form of governance in your company for those. IT historically has great governance over their enterprise tools, whether they're using SAP, Microsoft, Google, over their equipment and their servers. And so governance is not something that's mysterious, but what often happens with Atlassian tools is it's adopted by a company in a grassroots kind of practice where engineering or HR or some team has started using Jira, and they're focused on their jobs. But this is just a tool, so they don't actually go through all the training and understanding of how to do governance over that tool. And then they throw it over to IT, and IT has to clean it up and then establish that governance over it. But governance does have certain best practices to make it really valuable. It needs to account for, people, tools, and the practices. It can't ignore that three-legged stool of everything that has to be accounted. So you want to make sure that it's representative, that you have people that are from all parts of the organization that are using these tools. You want to have holistic systems thinking. You want to optimize for the whole, not for silos. And you want to think about how the data flows through the whole system to support all of the different ways that it's used. You want the people to drive the process, to drive the tools. You don't want it the other way around. You don't want the tools dictating to the teams how they should operate, because that's going to negatively impact that culture. So always make sure that your culture is driving the process and the process is driving the tools, not the other way around. And you also, with your governance, need to have intentional change management. And so we can talk about all of those in details. And maybe if you want to ask any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We'll be pulling those up. Or if you want to talk more about any of these particular topics. But why do we care about governance? Well, we care about it because we want to be able to have full end-to-end visibility of the work. We want to track that development lifecycle for the work for whatever reasons. It may be because we need the financial data. It may be that we want to be able to communicate to our customers exactly what was in that software delivery. But whatever reasons, we want to be able to know when our products are going to be completed. And we want to improve that visibility for the scope, the schedule, and dependencies. Also, that operational visibility and collaboration is going to be improved by having guidance for your end users in the tools. If they know exactly how to use it to get the job done. We were just talking before the webinar started about how this refrigerator broke and this dishwasher's a problem. And I was just saying, I just want it to work. I just want it to work. I just want my Zoom to work so that I don't have to use my avatar before I turn on my camera in order for the camera to work. It's like, so having that guidance and those standards in place will help make sure your system is operating effectively and that it will work for the things that you want it to work for. Oh my goodness. Jason, what's this?
What are we looking at here? Unfortunately, folks, this is my garage a little while ago. We'll see if there's a happy ending to this story, but that's not a happy present. And what this is garage chaos. And of course, you guys out there probably, I would say, don't have garages that look like this. Okay, let's hope not, but I did. And what this relates to is what Bonnie's talking about. You know, how much chaos do we have of data and configuration and processes? There's not really an understanding of where things are. Where's the data? You know, how's it classified? And there's a cost to that. It costs me time to fiddle with things in the garage and to do things that I need to do in the garage. And it also costs me opportunities. I tell this story about this situation where I have 45 minutes in between work calls, and maybe my wife wants to go on a walk and I've got a little 3 or 4-year-old son, right? And, you know, we go out to get the bike's under the stuff, the helmet, the this, the that. I can't find the things. And before you know it, we can't go on our walk anymore because now I got to get back inside for the call. So you miss an opportunity if your house is in chaos, if your business house is in chaos. So the next slide is a paper that we released, or an ebook, it's called Hidden Cost of Data Chaos. It's of course free to all you guys if you want. We can share it as well. But in it, there's a lot of things we could discuss. But basically, if you look at this little handy dandy graphic I put on the whiteboard here, over on the bottom left, you have this curve that goes up. That's the right way of doing business. So let's assume for a moment you're not doing business as well as you could be doing business. The processes, people's understanding of that we're all working inside the same playground or the same sandbox, right? And on the top left, you have your data chaos. And let's say it's at kind of a high right now. Your house isn't cleaned up. And you want to bring that data chaos down, and you want to bring the right way of doing business up. And as a result, you'll get better output. You'll get better outcomes in your business. And that stuff can take time. So what a lot of times what happens is clients we work with will want to bring in consultants and things like that. And of course, that's part of our business. Okay. And we get that. And we can do what I call Band-Aid fixes. We could do quick fixes. We could do things to get your output up. But sometimes that masks just actually fixing your governance, which is bringing the chaos down and bringing the right way of doing business up. And at some point, our goal when we work with our clients is to do exactly that. So the output takes care of itself. We're no longer doing Band-Aid fixes to get your output. So if you go to the next slide, in this paper, Hidden Cost of Data Chaos, there's a sentence I want to point out. Organizations often underestimate the impact of poor data hygiene because these costs are diffuse and incremental. They're hidden. It's hard to see because it happens over time. You wake up one day, you go, how did we get all these different fields and workflows and all this? I don't know. It just happened over time. It was incremental and it's spread out in little pockets of the business. It's diffuse, but it costs. On the next slide, those costs could be brought down 20%. So there's an opportunity there for you. All right. There's a cost of managing all that stuff. All right. Maybe it takes forever to put together reporting. Maybe there's time wasted because people are confused and they're not communicating properly because they're speaking two different languages essentially because they're working off different process playbooks. But think about the opportunities as a business as well. So that highlighted sentence says, in this context, poor data hygiene is not just an operational issue, it becomes a strategic risk when in your business, it's kind of the proverbial, I couldn't go on a walk with my wife and my son because I couldn't find all the stuff in time. Well, I missed an opportunity. And we don't want you guys to be missing opportunities because you don't have good governance in your business. You don't know where the stuff is put away. You can't access it quickly. You can't get decision-making data in time to make good decisions. That's a problem, right? So let's talk about the happy ending here, and then we'll get back to business. All right, I just didn't want to leave you guys hanging. I spent a little bit of money, not much, on some cool storage options. And what I did is I verticalized it. Here's some tips, free tips for you. All right. The garage is a three-dimensional environment, Bonnie pointed out. It's not just horizontal. We were talking about this earlier. So we went vertical with things like the shelving, the bikes. We labeled. All right. That's nice because I can find things like my winter clothes, my fall clothes, the helmets, the tools, whatever. And we segregated certain things. The bikes go in one area, the tools go in another area, the odds and ends go in another area. And so now it's all very clear. And guess what? It takes less to manage all that because everybody knows where to put everything now. So it doesn't go back into chaos as easily. And if I want to go on a walk, I just grab a bike and we go on a walk. And so anyway, we all like happy endings, right? But back to the business at hand, let's talk about what kind of chaos your actual business might be in. I'm going to give it back to Bonnie here.
Does this workflow look like something you might have? We have something at Valiantis we call the Jira Hall of Fame. And I think a lot of partners to Atlassian have similar pages in their own systems. But our Hall of Fame, where we see hundreds of issue types or thousands of custom fields, thousands of workflows and statuses and schemes, hundreds of Jira admins, or even dozens. If you just have dozens of Jira admins, then you probably need governance over your Atlassian tools. These are certainly the worst that we've seen, or some of the highest numbers we've seen. But really, whenever I see even just 100 issue types, I start to shudder and get nervous because it's like, okay, does everybody know what all these different issue types are for? And when I see somebody created this change request issue type, do I know that they knew that they were selecting the right issue type for that? I don't know. So the data becomes less valuable to me because it's less trustworthy. And the reports, you can't trust that the report is giving you the right, your dashboards, are they trustworthy data? Or is there stuff that's not in the right workflows or in the right fields, making the data untrustworthy? So governance is really about making sure that that map of your garage is set up so that Jason can grab that bike quickly and get his son out the door and spend that quality time providing the solution, right? So that's really what we're talking about here. And so some of the issues that we want to address when it comes to tools governance is that wild, wild west configuration. We need to make sure that the system is humming and operating clean with just the right configurations to support the processes and the culture in your organization. Permissions and security issues, those are things that can get very complex and matrixed and messy in your Atlassian products. And so it's important that governance is taking that into account and appropriately managing those groups and those access directories and the permission schemes. End user confusion. Uh, I saw recently a company where they had several dozen team managed projects that had different, they had their own custom fields for product. And then they had the company managed projects, they had a field for product. So then they went in to use their advanced roadmaps and they're trying to select which field to add. And they see 9 different product fields. And it's like, oh, which one am I supposed to select? It's an example of where that confusion comes into play and it slows people down, costing us time. End user support. Where do they go when they have questions, when they need training, when they're requesting that we need a change, we need this new field, or we need this workflow updated to support these needs? So where do they go? Do they know where to go? Do you have that defined? The admin training and system cleanup. So I have seen, I don't know, at least 100 different clients in the last 4 years, 5 years. And it never fails to amaze me how many of the admins have not had proper training on the system that they're managing. They some of them have learned some things, but then they'll find out, oh, you can do this. Oh, wow, I wish I'd learned that. And so having that admin training is so critical to make sure that they understand the system that they're operating. And then after you get all these foundations in place, that's when you can really think about those extensions, your program management office or your agile support, your strategic portfolio management solutions, even not just the portfolio or the processes support, but also your development integrations. You can automate a lot more things more effectively once you have that foundations in place. I sometimes use the analogy of Rosie the robot. I want her to come cook my dinner and clean up the kitchen afterwards. But in order for Rosie to do that properly, that DevOps integration that I want to have, cook my dinner, Rosie needs to know where all the canned goods are, needs to know where the silverware is, needs to know where the cups go in the dishwasher so that they actually get washed properly, and needs to know where to put them in the cabinets when they're cleaned. So all of that stuff has to be fully understood. And if your kitchen's like mine, there's no way I could draw a map for Rosie the robot, but we want our Jira system to have a good map. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So how do we get started? Well, the first part of that is who's involved. And so you want to stand up your Atlassian tools governance board. I've seen them called change control boards. I've heard them called the Jira Advisory Board, the JAB. ATAB is Atlassian Tools Advisory Board was another one. I've seen names all over the place. It doesn't really matter. You select the name you like best. In fact, our recent client, Tempo, they named theirs the Jira Harmony Council, which I thought was pretty cool. But the important thing is that you need to have the right people involved. You want to make sure that you have somebody who has decision-making authority. I call that the product owner, which is kind of an agile title, but really it's just the person who has that decision-making authority. And they're trying to get consensus from all of the representatives on the governance board, but sometimes consensus is not possible. And so you have somebody who is the final decision maker. You want to have your admins. The admins do need to be on that board, but you also want to have some admins, integration support representatives. Maybe you're integrating with your DevOps tools, with your Slack, or with your Microsoft products. So you might need some of the other IT admins as well, to not necessarily for every governance activity, but for certain topics they would be pulled in. And then you want to have your representatives from across the organization, people from project engineering, people that are the team leads, people that are the scrum masters, or some representatives of the firmware engineers, or if you're representing business processes, people from HR or finance or marketing. Depending on who's using the tools, you want these representatives from across the organization, and you want them to be engaged. Typically, if you want there to be 6 people that are actively engaged, you might need to invite 12 to participate. I do recommend that those are rotating roles also. It's not their full-time job, so maybe it's a 6-month or a 1-year cycle or something like that, where people are nominated to go participate in that board for a while. And what they're going to start out doing is they want to establish what is that team's vision, of course, their name. What are their goals? What are their practices? How do they operate? What is their scope of responsibility? Are we responsible for Jira and Confluence, Bitbucket, Guard? What are the different products that is our scope of responsibility? And then as part of that scope of responsibility is what are the activities? Where end user support, communication, change management plans. It might be the actual development practices. Their scope of responsibility spans not just the tools, but also the activities that they are supporting. And then they want to identify, implement, and document their Jira architecture. Their Jira architecture may be wild, wild west to start. So they may have to start out first saying, what is our future state Jira architecture going to be? And then build out their plan for moving into that future state. Jason knows this about me. My favorite engagements are the ones where I'm starting with a greenfield. It's like, yay, we're establishing governance up front. That would be ideal. I love it when we can establish governance up front, design our system and implement it, and we don't have to clean up the mess. But often what happens is we have several acquisitions that come in, and we've got to merge systems, or we've got lots of migrations that happen. Or it might just be that it was a grassroots implementation and it got thrown over the wall to IT, and IT has to clean it up. In which case, it's not a greenfield, obviously, but you still follow the same activities. You need to define what is that future state architectural design. And then after you've got that future state architectural design, you baseline it, and you're going to meet monthly then, hopefully be in a stable state eventually, and review change requests. And you're going to discuss what maintenance activities have to happen. You might look at the user support tickets and find out, we're getting a lot of questions around this area. Maybe we need to beef up our end user guidance on how to build our advanced roadmaps the way we do it at this company. And if you're on a DC system, you even have to plan out your upgrade plans. So that all is in the scope of what they'll be doing in their monthly meetings, is working through those. But when you're building your Jira architectural design with Valiantis hopefully helping you, or a trusted partner, you definitely want to do it more than once a month. That's going to be, let's get it done. Let's work on it daily or weekly so that we can build out that system and get it implemented. One thing I like to say, when those change requests come in, the board members do need to collaboratively consider all aspects of the change. So I always say this, I say it at least once a week. There is no such thing as a free plugin. There is no such thing as a free plugin. Uh, they all come with some sort of configuration that they're going to insert into your system, or they're going to require some sort of end user guidance on how to use them. So you're going to have to maintain that new configuration or clean it up afterwards. Maybe you were just trying it out, but then they inserted these new link types into your system. So you got to go delete all those link types. And maybe you didn't even know they existed. And now all these other people have started using them. And you've got to change them over to the link types that you want to keep, or you're going to end up with 100 different link types in your system. And then nobody really knows what the links are for, right? So don't consider any plugin free. There's no such thing as a free plugin. Make sure you're bringing in the plugins that are appropriate and for the needs. Also, I see so much where companies who have Jira Premium, but they don't have their sandbox. Are any people on our call not using their sandbox and they have Jira on the premium license tier? Install your sandbox and use it. Do all your testing there. I don't know. I can't get over how many times I see people not using it and then they test something out in production and realize, oh, I don't like it, but then they've created 10 issue types. No. So sorry, I'm getting a
Yeah.
little frantic there,
We,
but
well, I think about back in, the days of having the real job. And I just say real job because right now I love what I do so much. I have to pinch myself sometimes. But we did some mass field deletions because the system was haywire. And we did not at one point. At this point, we eventually set up a governance board and we had enterprise-wide reporting, which is kind of the end, like nirvana of all of this, is that you have awesome enterprise reporting capabilities because your data is
right.
clean. But this was before all of that. And we used to joke about scream testing. It wasn't very funny when I was a manager and I had two people from my team come literally screaming that, some of their key metrics and reports were killed because we killed some field that we swore was not being used. Nobody could be using this, and they were. So that's where, we had actual scars and battle wounds in our teams from not really running. It's sure it's bold, it's decisive. Let's go kill fields. But as you guys have more and more advanced deployments of your Jira configurations, your system across the enterprise, you may swear up and down that you're not going to affect somebody, and you find out the hard way and you get a new scar for it. So we had plenty of scars to show by the time we got around to setting up a proper governance framework at the
That's what
place
that
where I used to
sandbox
work.
is for. You want to
Yep.
make sure you do that in the sandbox first.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So then after they've while they're getting started, while that governance board is getting started, they need to establish what their goals are and what the scope of their responsibility is. And so I've listed 4 goals here: scalable growth, visible control, user ownership, and knowledge sharing. And you may adjust those. Your scope of governance may be different than this, depending on what systems you actually have, what Atlassian tools or what integrations you have. But you want your system to grow easily. You want when somebody is requesting a new project, you have all of the baselines defined, and it's going to grow easily. And you want it to, the proper run books associated with that. You want the control of your governance to be visible, transparent for the entire organization to see how the system is being managed. Um, you want the users to own the decisions. Obviously, you have admins involved as well, understanding the impacts, because the users don't want to, have a system that's going to blow up. We want to minimize our overhead, not maximize our overhead for our companies, right? but the users do understand why they need certain things. And so the admins will help them understand, okay, you want Gantt capabilities. Well, maybe this Gantt plugin would provide those answers, but we already have this one installed in our system. Have you tried using this? Oh, you don't have the proper access. Okay, we'll get that fixed. So users and admins will work together, but the users, you want all of the end users, a representative body, and then that knowledge sharing. That knowledge sharing is really powerful. You often have some power users. Maybe you have your certain tool gurus in the engineering world who have the really great roadmap built out in their advanced roadmaps or their structure. And that's a great model. Let them write up how to prepare that so that other organizations, other project managers can be learning from each other on their best practices. And so that's where governance comes into play, where they can help pull all that information together and distill it to the entire organization in their knowledge bases. So those would be the goals. And then the getting started, we also need to talk about how. And so those architectural decisions that you want to define are your layers of scale. That's pretty obvious. What are the layers of scale in our organization? And then what is the hierarchy of our JIRA issues? What is our scope of responsibility? We talked about that before. And then what's our JIRA configuration structure? What is the data topology? We got to have that map of our garage where all of our data resides so that we know how to find things. So what is that data topology by your JIRA hierarchy and your JIRA project type? You see this diagram here is from a recent engagement where we were talking about they had 5 layers of hierarchy in their JIRA tickets. And we were talking about some of the options for how they could lay those out in their JIRA project types. These aren't the only 3 options. I want to make sure that's clear, but those were the 3 options that they were discussing, where they would they have all of the issue types in a single JIRA project, or would they have the portfolio layer separated out and then have teams operating in a separate projects? And what is the definition of a project? If you can't define what a JIRA project is for your company, then maybe you don't really have good governance over your system. And I know that Atlassian, they use the term JIRA project. Project is kind of, I bet you they regret calling it a project now, because project is such an overloaded term. But people often will form JIRA projects around a product, or they'll form JIRA projects around a team, or they'll form them around teams of teams, or around departments. But you do want your JIRA project to be long-lived with a clear definition. Whereas a project in the standard terminology of engineering or project management is short-lived or has a start and end, whereas a JIRA project is intended to be long-lived. So define what your JIRA configuration structure looks like, and then also define what your program and portfolio requirements are. We want to understand what are those needs that we need to satisfy for our project management activities and for our reporting, so that we can make sure that we build that into our baseline to pull those automated reports into our dashboards. And then what also team level customizations and our integrations. So those would be some of the architectural decisions that you'd be working through to define your system. And so let me go ahead and exit the slideshow for a moment, and let me give you a demo of what we would do. And so I'm in a demo environment here where I have a Confluence. This is a Confluence space that is really helpful to put in a Confluence environment for a client where we'll start working through our governance board decisions. So we'll set how we operate. What is our mission? What is our cadence? Homework will be assigned to the board members to review, and then we'll discuss the options, and then the administrators will add the implementation to their queue. This is just an example, but then you'd also have all of the members listed out, what their roles are, and what is the scope of our governance, which tools are we operating in. But that governance, that would just be your homepage. The important thing I wanted to point out is that we break this down into 3 areas where we have our governance practices, our Atlassian administration area, and our knowledge base. And let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit, just in case those are a little small there. And so this doesn't have to live in Confluence. It could live in SharePoint. It can, and these don't necessarily have to be a single Confluence space or a single SharePoint area. But if your Atlassian administrators don't have their naming conventions, and they don't have their run books for their common activities, if they don't have maintenance activities defined for where they have their sandbox updates, or how they grant access, or whatever other types of housekeeping activities, cleaning out unused configuration elements, for example, then a good starting point would be pulling all of those different things together. They might have them scattered to the wind, so we might want to go collect them all and put them in a centralized location and start understanding those administration practices. And then there's, of course, a knowledge base where you're going to have all of your information about how we use Jira at our company, maybe naming conventions for our sprints, or our labels taxonomy for our Confluence, how we use our labels, or what are the Confluence page templates that we've built out for our organization for engineering estimates, or for change management practices, or whatever those Confluence page templates are that we have built. Now, you don't want to recreate all of the Atlassian documentation. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is you want to provide knowledge base on how you've designed it for your company specific knowledge base. You can still provide links to all of the Atlassian documentation and their YouTube channels and all that, but let them maintain that stuff. You don't need to maintain that. Then Jira configuration, we even talk about, okay, what are the different project categories? How do we define our project categories? And we might define them and then provide a little bit of information about each of them, as this enterprise project category is defined this way, and it includes these issue types and these workflows. And all of that information would be spelled out, just enough information as the handoff between the admins and the end users. We don't want to recreate all of that administration stuff in documentation either. We just want enough for that communication between the end users and the admins. And so that's our knowledge base. Our governance practices is where we have things like our implementation guidance and best practices. This is probably collected best practices from, I would guess, somewhere around 50 years collected experience of several different admins that I've worked with at Valiantus, pulling all of that different information together. And then our change request process. How do we manage change requests? How do we handle those? What is our support model? How do people request support or new project? What is our enablement and training model? And what is our communication model, our change management practices? So these would be things that we would work through to discuss, okay, how do we handle those? And then the decision log, this is actually built out with an Atlassian template, the decision-making DACI, D-A-C-I, the DACI decision-making template. And so this is where you would have all your architectural decisions. So what is our hierarchy? What is our project category structure? What are our program and team project categories? What are our workflow starting and ending practices? I'm one of those people that's very persnickety about, I like that word, by the way, persnickety about workflow practices. I'm one of those people that really feel strongly that you just want 2 ending statuses, complete and canceled, and you really just want 1 starting status. Everything else in between is up for grabs. But if you have just 2 ending statuses, then you know that this work was completed, this work was canceled, and it's very easy to configure in your roadmaps and your plans and your structures, or whatever kind of reporting, that you don't have to search through 20 different statuses to find out. And status category, I know status category is available. I mean, the green is a status category done. The blue is status category in progress, and the white or gray is status category to do. You could do your reporting based on that, but then what's the point of having all these different workflows anyways, right? So the Jira project architecture and hierarchy, these decisions are all the different types of decisions that you're going to work through to define what is our architectural baseline going to look like. And so over time, the decision log would then start focusing in on change requests. But when you're building out your architectural decisions on your Jira system, that's what it would look like. And so that's my demo. Let me go back to the slides. And so when we work on a governance engagement, well, I'll hand it back over to you, Jason, because you're better at this than me.
That's fine. I like persnickety too. I was thinking of all these other fun words that we could incorporate. Like you don't want your data to be cattywampus, you know. Maybe that's one of your picadillos. That so just all
Okay.
the fun words. Yeah.
Our next webinar, we're going to do a word bingo or something.
We should. Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be so much fun. So the one I want to point out in here, just wrapping up, because that was an awesome overview, and most of the folks that we talk to about these topics, or we show the demo of the actual governance board setup, want to learn more. Just as a company, just to kind of reiterate Bonnie's point, we want every interaction to be remarkable. We also seek to, one of our kind of mantras internally here is, we want to bring value to our customers at every interaction. We've actually had some of our CEOs say, if you don't have something valuable to bring to your client, just don't even pick up the phone, okay? Because we want every single interaction that they have with us to bring value to them. And that's that committed to value piece that you're seeing on the screen here. So we hope that this has been valuable for you. I want to talk about a couple additional things here as we wrap up. So the next slide would be, I mean, you guys probably know, but if you're not as familiar, we do work with a lot of companies. These splash screens can be a dime a dozen, but we work with lots of companies out there, large and small. So that's fine. The next slide. The way we typically do work is we have different kind of levels of offerings. So if this is of interest to you and you want to learn more, you want to share this with others, of course, this webinar is free. It's an hour long, right? If you want to learn a little bit more, we do have a governance workshop, which is one day where you can actually join in. We go through all of this for a whole day. We unpack it quite a bit more. That's not free, but it's just one day. It's an easy investment to make. And, maybe you learn enough in that day to start going and fine tuning your own business. And you learn enough tips and tricks to where you don't have to have a larger engagement. But if you are maybe a larger enterprise, or, we worked with a company recently that's got over 50 mergers and acquisitions that they're comprised of. Well, that may take a little bit more. And we do have governance engagements that can span from 2, 3, 4 months, where we do look at, the governance board, the tools configuration, the data configuration, even the processes, and maybe there's process reengineering that comes out of that as well. And that can have a huge benefit in terms of, what we talked about, saving cost at your company. Costs money to have all this stuff in disarray, discombobulated, as it were. And it can also be an even larger opportunity cost. If you go back to that paper that was referenced earlier, the hidden cost of data chaos, it could be an opportunity cost that's even larger of inability to make good future decisions. So there's a lot of room there. And those are the types of engagements we do here. If you want to take a look at the next slide, of course, we know we've been told this, and I think we believe it, to one extent or another, out in the, what I'd call the data community, the digital community, that data is the new gold. So we want to help you turn that data from perhaps a mess of ore and something sitting in a mountain somewhere to really valuable gold. And we have a long list of examples of clients that we've worked with where we've helped them to access that gold and to go from hearing it in a webinar to experiencing it in their own business. And how do we do that? The next slide, I just kind of want to point out that you know, we can work with you in a consultative engagement. You can see where a lot of this stuff is. It's consultative. It's not just go implement a tool. So where the value exists for you isn't necessarily only in Jira as a tool or a platform or a system or a solution to your company, but it's how it's fit for purpose and how it's fine-tuned and optimized. And that involves the people. That involves the processes that you follow when you use it. And if you highly tune that and get that three-legged stool, as Bonnie called it, right, you can extract that gold. And when we say gold, there could be the anecdotal, like, yeah, my data is really valuable. And there's the real gold, the bottom line to your company, the top line and bottom line. And we can work with you to discover what those things are that can help get you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. And maybe there's 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures worth of business benefit that we can discover in that process. And the next slide might be the last one I wanted to touch on there, which is just that becomes then a journey of maturity at your business. And maybe right now you're not at the bottom and maybe you're not at the top, but wherever you are now, if there's a difference between where you are now and where you want to get to, again, we are not just Atlassian tool resellers. We're not just Atlassian tool implementers. We have all of these topics that Bonnie talked about are very much so IT consulting topics, change management, process reengineering, things like that, that are very instrumental in a journey of growth and maturity across your company and can get to those valuable outcomes that you're seeking after. And those things don't just typically happen overnight. We'd love to partner with you guys. We partner with several companies along their journeys. And you can see here, just this is an example. Maybe not you guys. Maybe it doesn't start with the cloud and consolidation. Bonnie's talked about the optimal way is that perhaps we address your governance issues before we start to migrate data. Why take the junk from your old house that you just moved out of and just throw it into your new house the exact same way it was in your old house? If you're upgrading to cloud or you're updating your processes, well, wouldn't we want to take a look at that and make it right, and then do that migration potentially, and thereby save you money.
Well, it does. It saves money because if you're going to move into the cloud and you've got the wild, wild west configuration in your data center system or your server system, and why not build your architectural baseline in the cloud, build it in your DC system, convert your projects that you're actually going to migrate over into the cloud. So that way you don't pull all the wild, wild west. You don't have to clean it up. It's already clean. And you know, that old DC system, you don't have to worry about cleaning that up because you're not using it anymore. So it saves you a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, it's true. And you can see where in the kind of the olden days, I think we talked a lot about cloud migrations. And now we're talking about cloud transformation, talking about larger, these things are, again, it's a journey of maturity, and there's ways to truly save money and optimize the outcomes along the way rather than just plodding along a technical path of, you bought a migration, we execute the migration, and then you wake up one day and you go, how did I get here? I'm not getting the benefits I had expected and hoped for. Well, that's one area where we can come in and help quite a bit and have done so in the past. And so the next slide might be the wrap up here. I'll hand it back off to Bonnie to kind of say, where do we go from here?
Yeah, let me check first. Do we have any questions in the chat? I know one of the common questions I get is, what are the most common challenges I see where people are standing up governance? And honestly, I would say it always comes down to traction and authority. If the governance board doesn't have the necessary skills or guidance or background experience, they have trouble getting traction to make decisions. And so they will spin their wheels and potentially just peter out eventually. So that's one of the most common things I see. And so that's one of the places where I try to help. And then authority. If the governance board doesn't have the authority to make the decisions for the system, because they don't maybe have the executive leadership, sponsor support to make those decisions, then it's also going to struggle. And those are the two most common things I see.
Yep. And we're working with one client right now that kind of experienced that. So they're taking another run at this, but with more executive sponsorship level support. And, so sometimes you do have to get out the axe and you've got to clean some things up and cut the root, right? And so now that they're going to have a little bit more oomph to go get that stuff done, um, that'll be there. And then, hopefully you have a good governance board established then in the wake to maintain and optimize that environment. Or else if it's all executive slashing, then it just falls apart again, a year down the road, and it's messy again, like a bad garage.
Yeah. Well, feel free to reach out to us. We have the links in the chat for our Valiantis YouTube. As we said, it's our intent to make every interaction remarkable, always provide value. I don't remember the exact wording right now. And so we have an entire YouTube channel where we've got lots of different training materials. We've got all our previous webinars on many different topics, as well as we provide actual training in some of these videos that are freely available to you. And also we have our live training calendar out on the in the link that was provided in the chat, where you can actually sign up for any of these classes. We have our Jira Bootcamp for admins, which is fantastic. It's a 3-day full in-depth training. Confluence Bootcamps, Jira Service Management. What are some of the other ones? There's Jira Line boot camps, lots of different types of training that we provide. And but if you just want to ask a question, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we would be happy to discuss any of your questions. I love debates about the proper project architecture, and I'm still on the fence about what I would say is, if I was designing a system for me, for my company, my pretend company, I there's pros and cons to so many different things. So it really depends on the company, right? But I would be happy to chat with you about it. Workflows, I'm also pretty passionate about, screens, fields, but the whole project architecture is really the crux of the matter for a lot of companies. And once they have that, they're off to the races, and they can do some great automated reporting. And Jason, do you remember being a project manager where somebody would come to you, some executive would come to you, I need to know, have this report for this meeting by Friday, and it's like, how am I going to get this data? How in the heck am I supposed to provide a report on that? And it's like, and how much time companies waste on that kind of stuff?
That was every day. Yep,
It's
that
so
was
much.
every day. It's the old saying, being a project manager is like riding a bike, except the trees are on fire around you and the sidewalk's on fire and you're on fire. So it's just like riding a bike though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
in the
So yeah. If you ever want to, Bonnie said she liked to debate. So if you ever want to debate her and just get her a little fired up, reach out to her and tell her why it's not a good idea to start by using templates when you establish your projects at Jira. So you'll get a great reaction and it'll be a very lively debate. I promise you that.
Yeah, that or team managed projects. Oh,
So, hey guys, we hope it was remarkable for you and it brought you value. And yes, like Bonnie said, please do reach out and we would love to talk with you about where you're at with your current situation at your company and, kick around ideas on what we could do to help.
all right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.